Well, good morning and welcome back to the Roundtable with Family. I'm your host, Larry Elson, in studio with the rest of the family. To my right, Helen.
Fired up.
To my right, Helen. To her right, Helen. I mean, Rhodes. The Rhodes guys here. Dr. Brown.
What happened?
When you put it in front of the mic, it can feed
Oh, okay.
Got it.
No static here. Dr. Bradley is in the house here.
Yeah,
Come on, big brother. How are you?
I'm blessed and highly favored, bro.
Oh, man, I like that.
Blessed and highly favored.
And Pastor Hobbs is still with us here as well. I want to thank our sponsor, The Money Store, for all your mortgage needs. Good branch manager, Cora Holbrook, can call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726. Also want to thank the Cruise Construction for their continued support of At the Roundtable with MAMLEO, as well as MAMLEO and the MAMLEO membership for their continued support here at this cause. Before we took the break, Helen brought up some very interesting that, the reason why the city councils are under, they increased their salary by 21%?
21%. So according to Boston.com and some other articles, Boston City Councilors' pay has increased by $21,500, approximately 21% increase since early 2024 through a series of scheduled raises approved in 2022. So basically it went from $103,500 in January 24 to $115. So they're going up to about $125,000 by 2026.
Oh, wow.
21% increase.
So even with everybody else having to do with less, they continue to take care of themselves. That's so nice of them to do, look out for themselves rather than their constituents.
Mayor gave herself an increase too, right? She, in the same legislation that increased the councilors' pay, mayor's salary increased from $207,000 to $250,000.
$250,000. It's nice work if you can get it. Folks just can't get it.
I know.
Right?
I see Willie over there. He's just
they can afford to pay that bill. And Jamal, thank you for that little comment there, little text message.
Nice show.
And I will be listening.
listening.
Jamal, he's a character. He's a character. I looked down. I'm like, what is this? I thought it was T. Michael. If you want to join us here at the round table, the call-in number is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685. Well, folks, looks like the DA's race is heating up. Actually, we, so far we have the current district attorney, Kevin Hayden, is running. Linda Champion, who ran before as an attorney, is running. And then, surprisingly to some folks, former district attorney, former U.S. attorney for the state, for the Southeast District of Massachusetts, Rachel Rollins has put her hat back in the ring, and she has now announced that she is running to reclaim the seat she vacated when she went over to the U.S. Attorney's office. And just, folks, what are your feelings on, one, if Rachel Rollins getting back into the race? We're going to have to get them all on, actually, but get them on the broadcast here. What's your feelings on this DA's race? And a lot of people that current district attorney Kevin Hayden is taking a lot of heat for charging Officer O'Malley in the shooting death of one of the residents here in Boston.
Not to interrupt, but did you hear the news that who's representing Officer O'Malley?
It's the same
David
attorney
Gannetti.
that represented Karen Reed.
Very interesting choice of attorneys, and the fact that he's representing O'Malley makes me actually question some things.
Listen, money is money. He saw the GoFundMe page.
Yeah, exactly.
So he can pay. He definitely can.
Wouldn't the union be paying for his attorney? Because a non-duty incident, right?
Yeah.
I would think the union would be covering for his attorney.
Well, the union, that attorney works for the union, not for him.
Right.
If I were him, I would want my own attorney.
But then the union would still cover the attorney, though.
Not necessarily.
Even if it's a non-duty incident?
No. I would, if in a matter of that magnitude, if I were him, I would want my own attorney working with the union's attorney,
Mm.
because the union attorney is going to do what the union wants,
Right.
not what he wants.
Yeah, and there's a cap too, isn't
There's
it?
a cap on it.
Oh, there's a
yes.
cap on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this can get quite expensive.
I'm not in favor of union's attorney, which is why I'm so happy that MAMLEO has its general counsel, because I have someone to watch the union attorney.
Absolutely. It's
Because
been
they're
a-
not in your
yeah.
interest. I've been there.
Oh, I agree with you on that one.
That's
I agree with you on that one. But I was just thinking more in terms of the cost of the attorney. I would think the union would actually cover it.
That's one of the first things I implemented when I became president was that oversight over, because we really didn't
definitely.
have anyone, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah,
You know, it's-
yeah, because that attorney knows the other attorney's obligation as under the bar. You know what I mean? So if that attorney doing something fishy, he stands to lose his license to the
Right,
bar.
right.
And so you have that other attorney to say, wait a second, this is my client. You
Right.
can't do this. It makes a difference.
You need a set of independent eyes.
Yeah.
So again, this DA's race, some folks are feeling like, that because District Attorney Kevin Hayden charged Officer O'Malley, that pretty much, is gonna hurt his
His chances of winning.
the DA's office.
Well, because obviously it affects the police union and the membership, the filing rank, thinking that he's not one of us. I know there's supposed to be a wall, or whatever,
separation.
a separation of power and everything, and it should be like, hey, he's charged. Let justice prevail the way it's supposed to. If it's the truth, it's the truth.
Listen, when a police officer does something wrong, that behavior is warned by all police officers. That's the first hit. My second hit is that if you're really concerned about community police relations, you have to hold your officers accountable.
Yes.
I don't know enough about the event to know if that officer was right or wrong. But what I do know, as a fair-minded citizen, that the officer has rights and the person who's dead has rights. And I also know that if the officer used a canned report or some type of report to actually justify his behavior, then he needs to be held accountable for that. Period. You know what I mean? And I'm not advocating to chop the guy's head off and his family. I got all that. But what I'm simply trying to say here, as sincerely as I possibly can, is that wherever the rubber meets the road, it should be fair. Period.
No, and that's why I was saying, and people were saying, well, look, and I think it's refreshing. I think it's also good that people hear former officers, like I was saying. I told them, the only thing that right now the officers is entitled to is a presumption of innocence, right? Nothing else. None of this bombardment of officers going in there in the courtroom staring down, almost like Donald Trump did with the Supreme Court. Right.
It's also
and
on the state to prove their case.
Right.
The Commonwealth has to prove their case, and DA Hayden there has to prove his case in order
but
to
also,
be under reasonable doubt.
we sit and we watch what happened with Pam Bondi and what's continuing to happen with the U.S. Attorney, the Attorney General. Do we want that type of where there's a collaboration between the leadership and the law enforcement, or do you want a separation?
You need that separation.
Absolutely.
We need the
If we're to-
separation, but I've heard it directly from the DA's office before, where they're like, hey, we depend upon the police department for 99% of our witnesses, and they make a point to make sure to not ruffle feathers as much as they can. And that seems to be more of what they've been doing in the past. So it's been interesting with this to watch this O'Malley
It's funny.
case
I brought up that
going
question
on.
before, but you were telling me that the people that investigate for the DA are never actually associated with the actual police department for the
No,
state.
there are police officers from Boston that are assigned to the DA's office that investigate, because I think people confuse the Suffolk County District Attorney is not just Boston. It's Suffolk County. It's Revere, Lynn, Chelsea.
Yep.
So it's not just Boston. So there are also state troopers that are assigned there. So from looking at the original police report, it was written by a supervisor, a Boston police officer who's assigned to the DA's office. So there are officers assigned there, and in a case like this, I'm sure the state police, because they're not Boston officers, would probably be taking the lead role in this, because the Boston officers are there.
If they want independence.
See,
We know how that goes.
What happens on this situation like this is the DA can determine exactly who's going to do the investigation.
Right.
What they usually do, in my experience, is that they will have the agency, the member on their staff who's not a member of that agency, be the lead on that investigation. So it's a Boston police officer, there will be the state. If it's a state officer, it'll be a BPD.
Right.
All right? And then, because what happens, what you have to understand, there are relationships that are developed throughout the academy and
Yeah.
through the time on the force and so on and so forth. So, like, I didn't go through the academy with Larry, but I know him,
Right.
you know. And so, if he's investigating me, I would feel comfortable with it. By the way, just to make sure, because I know he's fair. But not all people are like that.
Right.
They could say, "Well, I didn't like this individual."
Or the ones that get those positions.
So you don't even want the appearance
We've all
that-
seen them.
So,
the people
but-
that end up in those units, the homicide division, the task forces, and everything else. Are they always the ones that you want to be, or internal affairs? Are they
No,
always
so-
the ones that you
so-
want to actually be doing the investigation?
So there's very few people that you know, even although Boston's a large police department, but there are some social and cultural and organizational pressures that the officer might be under to say, well, okay, we'll let this go.
But I think it's also to that point, Dr. Bradley, I think people, I was talking this before you guys came with Pastor Hobbs, we don't do a good enough job explaining, because people think because Boston is one of the few departments that is allowed to do investigations of homicide, but at the end of the day, regardless wherever in the Commonwealth, the DA's office is in charge of any death investigation. They are the primary.
Yeah,
Authority on
and even it says that they have their own internal investigative unit. So they have their own internal investigative unit in the DA's office that actually will handle homicides.
But I think in most cases where there's a homicide, people really kind of just see, and they're on scene, and if it's a homicide, the DA's office, but they kind of get lost in the background. But because this is an officer involved shooting, it's getting more attention.
Most of the state, right? Most of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I think, ends up. A lot of cities and towns have agreements with the state police.
Well, it's because they don't have a homicide division.
But what we see, and I often tell my students this: when you look at state police operations, usually when you have the state police with the police tag or nomenclature on the car, that's a full police service. So most small towns like a Randolph may not have a homicide division. State PD would provide that. Some police departments will close down at 5 o'clock. State PD run the police services from 5 to 5. You know, so they kind of serve in that capacity.
Back and forth, yeah.
But my other hit is this: we have just witnessed the importance of having body cameras running
Absolutely.
on police officers, because if the officer's report is incongruent to the body camera video, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why, like, it's interesting how why not then release again? Like, I would say, like, releasing the video would actually help to answer a lot of those questions. And there has been that push for that transparency, and there has been case precedents where body cam footage has been released prior to trial. And so it kind of makes you wonder why Hayden is refusing to even at least say something, comment, reference, whatever,
Well,
or just release the video in terms of does it help his case, or does it hurt his case?
I would
Hayden's
disagree
case?
with that, because again, we're looking at potential jurors. So anyone who sees it now has to be excluded. And I think that you releasing it, I get it. The public wants to know, everybody wants to see it, but it's going to do more harm than good. For also, as we said, the officer's entitled to a fair trial. It's going to, because people are going to see a snippet of it, and they're not going to be there to hear the trial. So I think he's doing the right thing to protect the integrity of the investigation in the case by not releasing that video. You know, because people are going to come down one side or the other. But again, it's going to shorten the pool of people who you can bring in and say, "Well, did you see? Yeah, I saw the video. So can you be impartial?"
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's important, because there was a lot of pushback on the idea of wearing body cameras. You know, in this kind of situation here, it proves that the officer either did his job correctly, or he did not, or he slightly made miscalculations that need to be addressed through retraining. But the officer has to also be very accurate and very fair in his documenting of the.
But not just the officers' cameras. We don't know what other cameras are in there. Everyone's got a ring, right?
Absolutely.
So we don't know what else.
What else is caught? What was said? What was?
But that's the importance of having video on the officer or in the community.
To me, it's like you said, the video's not going to lie. And one of the things I really had wished...
It's impartial.
Well, one of the things I wished is that I wish the video for Rodney King did not get released the night that it happened. I wish the guy that had the video held on to it and let the trial start, and then all of a sudden surprise evidence showed up. So they would have just gotten them all on perjury at least.
So before we get these calls, one of the texts says, with the accountability forum, maybe have an organized community session and come up with 5 to 10 issues with questions that they definitely want it answered. And if they can't get answers, that the forum task them with getting back with an answer. If you don't get it from the city council before
Action
they
items.
leave, good luck.
Yeah.
So
Give them action
we're
items
going
to
to
action
grab
items.
Siddiqui, and then we'll get to Jamal. Good morning, Siddiqui. Welcome to the roundtable.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
A couple of things. First of all, in regards, this, I wasn't calling in primarily with this, but the interesting dynamic was when they talked about this whole thing with Officer O'Malley. And the other thing, too, is there's witnesses who basically said, look, his life or his partner's life was not in danger. So, but the interesting thing is when we did our press conference, we revealed something that no one else was talking about. That
Press conference related to this, to the shooting. Okay, I must give you an update.
Oh, can you make sure to speak louder so everyone else can hear you too?
Yeah.
They were whitewashing it, not revealing the race of the brother King. And so we did our press conference and put a whole nother dynamic. So now you notice that the ambulance chaser, their Crum and other folks in there now. But I mean, the bottom line is that he killed that brother. He shot him unnecessarily. The other piece that I wanted to put out there is I heard you talking about Rachel Rollins and RCC. And let me just say that RCC is in a mess right now in terms of what's going on. And the president there, Jefferson, he's in over his head. The bottom line is, first of all, the image is not looking good because of the fact that with Tompkins, Rachel Rollins is over there on a consultant basis making very good money. And then you've got an individual there, Demetrius Pringle, who is in management at the Reggie Lewis, who had done prison time for embezzling over $500,000 at his former position. Plus,
Rachel Rollins isn't much better with her skin.
plus, we're getting ready to go to court because of the fact that he threatened the life of my grandson and myself. So it's pretty raggedy over there. And the other piece is this president, I don't know, of RCC, he is banning us from doing the 39th annual Malcolm X Memorial Awards breakfast on May 23rd.
Who's banning?
So,
President of the RCC.
Yeah,
So
that
Siddiqui,
wasn't it.
so do you have a candidate or a favorite in this DA's race? Or are you of the three that have announced? Are you supporting any of them?
I'm not really paying attention to it that much.
Okay.
Just in terms of, I think it's interesting that the young lady there, Rachel Rollins, is in it. But like I said, it's like a post office bulletin board over there at Roxbury Community College.
A post
And like I
office
said
warning.
before, we're calling on folks to call the president and say, do not ban the Malcolm X breakfast because of the fact when we said to him, he put up a couple of reasons that were bogus, and we said, okay, there's nothing to stop us from doing the breakfast,
Yeah.
so why would you ban it? And his statement was, I am the president.
Sounds like Trump. The bombs will be coming soon, Siddiqui. So just stand by. So Siddiqui, stand by. I want to get Jamal's take on this DA's race. I'm sure he has not much to say about it. Jamal.
So, one, to the case of O'Malley, which really is, one of the things that, prompted all of this, right? As you know, Larry Calderoni from the union openly said, anybody who wants to run against this guy, you should pull papers tomorrow.
I didn't hear that. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Oh, yeah, he said that initially. So, but in our case, in our community, the two people who have arisen, one, which is Linda Champion, who had run before, and then now, of course, Rachel Rollins, of course, I don't think either of them are going to enjoy the support of law enforcement in order to be able to capitalize on what anybody may perceive as a weakness right now for Hayden, based on this case. Now, what I will say on this particular case is, one thing, we know that Hayden is not some hot-headed, loudmouth, reactionary type of guy, right? By all accounts, he's a very cerebral type of guy. He's very judicious, and he's just not prone for drama.
Well, you're right. You should be politely calling him a nerd, but yeah.
No,
I mean, yeah.
Larry's like, we're back to the chase.
And I don't want to do, and I don't want to do that too, because too, I know the pedigree. Like, his father was a very well-known historian, Robert Hayden.
He's a low-key guy. He's not.
There you go. That's what I'm more comfortable with.
Yeah,
Well, look at what Rachel Rollins did to Hayden in the last race, right? She's going to call sexism now while she's trying to run for DA, and then where she backs someone like a Royal with the criminal allegations he had against him, while she's rerunning now against Hayden for all she pulled last time around.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that for Hayden to take this step, which, once again, by all accounts is a very bold step, right, then he must have seen something to justify that, because he wouldn't put his own neck on the line for something so severe if it was not. So to Dr. Bradley's point, if the camera contradicts the officer's statements and report, which I think even from what they've, just talked about the report, I think some of that already does contradict, that this is a mess. And this mess is going to be further amplified now by the presence of people like Ben Crump. When I saw Ben Crump at the press conference on one side and Peterson, Kevin Peterson off to the left, this is just like, I pray for justice for this family, but I'm very concerned, about whatever strategies they may employ in the pursuit of it. But okay, so now for the DA's race. For Rachel Rollins, point blank is, I supported Rachel in the first go-around, as did many folks in the black community. But I think she burned a lot of bridges. People and organizations that supported her in the first thing, when she got the position as DA, she had very limited, if not zero, contact with those very same individuals and organizations. And then also, too, I would be remiss if I didn't mention her support of Monica Cannon Grant at the time. They were besties. Tag teaming. That relationship obviously, fizzled out or whatnot, but I can't say, and I like Rachel as a person and all that, but I can't say just as an individual, I wouldn't vote for her again.
Well, let me just jump in for a second, because I think, there's been a lot of good points raised here, and one of them, is that, District Attorney Kevin Hayden is taking the brunt of this because he is but those of us who understand how this works, it's usually the assistant. It was the assistant DA who, Kevin Hayden doesn't do the investigations. This, because it's a high-profile case, he's out there. But in 99.9% of the time, when charges are brought against someone, it is the assistant DA that looks at the facts and then decides whether or not the charges are going to go forward, and they bring the charge on behalf of the Commonwealth. Because it's interesting that the gentleman, and I forget his name, who was the assistant, was the one who looked at it and said, charging him at the press conference, he's not taking this, they're not coming after him. They're only coming after Kevin Hayden.
He's the head of it. And even with all everything going on, right? Even I think the last time around, Kevin Hayden ended up having to pay a $5,000 fine for violating conflict of interest laws to the State Ethics Commission over his actions during the Suffolk County District Attorney's race. So we have everyone has, in terms of like all the candidates that we're looking at, so not all the candidates, but at least so far between Rachel Rollins and Kevin Hayden, we have ethics concerns underlying.
Well, we have a convicted felon in the White House, so I don't know what people like.
But let's put all the sins in order. Let's put all the sins in order. So for instance, Kevin Hayden with the $5,000 thing was because basically he had to pay the ethics thing. They say he released information regarding Ricardo Arroyo's past. The accusations against him for sexual misconduct or what have you, right?
Yeah, Hayden knowingly or with reason to know, I'm quoting the NBC article from the State Ethics Commission, said that by these failures to act, Hayden knowingly or with reason to know uses his official position as Suffolk District Attorney to secure for himself the unwarranted privilege of using valuable public resources for his own personal political advantage and violated the conflict of interest law, the commission said in a media release. And this was in regards to a statement that was made that Hayden knew his staff intended to release the statement and took no action to stop it, and also made no effort to withdraw the statement after the fact. Which his
and when they say value, of course, they're not talking about monetary value. But, in any event, yes, they released information about Ricardo's past dalliances or allegations or what have you.
Criminal allegations, not dalliances.
What'd you say?
Criminal allegations. Let's not call it dalliances and diminish it. It's
I
criminal
said allegations right after I said dalliances, part of self. Now, the point being is that when that happened, that was under a lot of public pressure, and if you remember at the time, right, because Rachel had got in trouble for releasing something on Kevin, and then, the Ricardo Arroyo story had bubbled, and people want answers and all that. So all I'm saying, to me at least for me, of all the transgressions that have happened, I find that to be most minimal. Like, Kevin made a mistake, he paid $5,000, ethics commission, whatever, but it's not like, he got caught, with some money or, some chickadee in a hotel.
And then you have Linda Champion, who's had some issues as well in the past in her time as an attorney, and that's why I was kind of surprised to see her throw her hat back in the ring as if these things weren't going to come up. Is that the norm now? I'm not saying you have to be a saint to be in public office,
but at least be transparent about it. Be honest about it. Whereas Richard Rollins is going to start claiming like, "Oh, this is sexist and I'm being treated differently." When it's like, when you have a commission report that says that you basically committed the most egregious violation of the Hatch Act that anyone has ever seen, it's like, come on, just own up to it.
Well, I do agree with owning up to it, but what I want to caution us on is that we oftentimes blame people after they have already spent their time and their money to rectify the situation. At what point are we going to relieve them of that responsibility? It's okay, you have paid for it, now let's move forward.
And we're always harder on us than we are on the other side.
So we need to,
like you said, the convicted felon in the White House.
Exactly. He's still getting the pass.
Right.
He's still getting the
Trump.
But once again, we're not the ones that voted for him. So, let's not take, yes, he is in the White House, but we're not the ones that put him there.
Yeah, that's true.
But my point is that what we tend to do as in our demographics, what we tend to do and what other people tend to do to us is that once we have made a transgression and we have paid for that transgression, we still
don't
held
get to
liable. We don't get a chance to move forward.
Yeah.
That's always held over our heads.
Yeah.
So if he paid the $5,000, he paid the fine. Let's move forward.
Right. So, Pastor Hobbs, I want to take with you because you work with people behind the wall. Is there any conversation taking place with these folks, or any on how they feel about this DA's race? Because those folks are impacted by this probably more than most.
Well, quite candidly, people have mixed emotions, right? They feel that she has kind of more recently post what all that she's been through, right? And she has actually, I believe, she's come behind the wall, right? And actually, just to encourage people to civic engage in her nonprofit organization, The Fort, that's housed at RCC, where she's actually very intentionally helping those who are re-entering back in the community, and as well as hoping to be able to have schooling virtually. And then they'll be enrolled, and she jumps and supports them in the community and so forth. So a lot of folks behind the wall are actually excited about the fact
that she's
running.
Okay. Interesting. So, Siddiqui, where I know you said you don't have a horse in this race, but what's interesting too is that there is the sheriff's Suffolk County Sheriff's position. I'm just wondering why no one has thrown their hat in the ring for that, because you can do a lot of good there for people who are already involved in the system in some way to help them, but doesn't seem to be much interested in that.
We don't recognize Suffolk. That's Nubian County.
Nubian County. Okay.
Well, technically, there's no counties in Massachusetts, anyways.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is that, well, first of all, we know that Tompkins still is in that position, although he's on the sideline.
Yeah, he stepped away.
Because of Tompkins is, facing those federal charges. But let me just say that the bottom line is that Stephon King, he is George Floyd. I don't need to see the video. This guy, O'Malley, assassinated him. And so the reality is, I know people saying, well, we got to see the facts and what have you. But the bottom line is, when you got somebody who goes up and tells an individual, I'm not going to use the language, that he's going to shoot him and puts 3 bullets in there, then the bottom line is that he's guilty. And let me say the other thing too is that I'm a little disappointed in Jamal because, you know, he and I generally disagree, but recently we've been agreeing on quite a few things. And
well, they say a broken clock is right twice a day.
I'm missing the conflict.
Well, you know, Siddiqui, that's because I think you're finally getting wiser in your old age.
I'm wiser from the perspective of not.
Here we go. We're back to back. They're back.
It's important that you stand up for what's
Jamal
right.
and I, we have that far apart now when it comes to age, number one. Plus, you know, I'm the type of person that I tolerate individuals who I don't necessarily agree with, you know. So I've been giving you a pass, Jamal. Because
it didn't take long to get them back in the arena.
But the important thing, Stinky, right, is that you got to point out what's wrong.
You call
wrong,
him Stinky?
And what? No, Stinky.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Left you out over there. But it's like, you know, you point out what's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. There should be, you know, very clear lines, right?
Well,
in
see,
terms
the problem
of
is that what Jamal and others struggle with is that I'm always right.
Oh, but
that's been the main problem for a lot of people. Yeah,
to answer
the
Larry,
RCC president is finding that out right now.
answer Larry's question with regard to the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office. It's because Tompkins' term doesn't actually expire until January 2029.
Oh wow, I thought it was this year.
No, 2029, and then that's why interim sheriff right now is Mark Lawhorn. So that's why we're not seeing anything with the Suffolk County
I
Sheriff's
thought it was
position.
up this year.
Hey,
Okay.
and another thing, a serious point on the sheriff's tip, right? As our quote-unquote black or people of color, whatever folks want to group it, with our collective quote-unquote political power, folks have been scratching their head. Okay, so Tompkins eventually is, you know, not going to be there anymore. Who do we have to replace, right? Now, if we remember the sister Sandy Caliste,
Yeah.
she had run before.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably be, you know, more favorable to something like that, unless something else emerges. But the point is, you know,
I say
that our
Dr.
political
Bradley.
power is lacking. Well, I don't think Dr. Bradley wants that problem.
No, I don't want that problem.
Yeah. You know, but our political thing is so lacking that one of our problems, you know, locally and nationally, is that when the quote-unquote people go or get replaced, whatever, we don't have the people to replace them. We don't have a
this
top
is
10
where,
list.
right? But see, this is where we don't have a bench, right? This is where
Right, there you go.
This is where these meetings. This is where we should be having meetings about developing that talent rather than just we know what the problems are, but and then. What's the motivation, to your point, Jamal, for someone to get into that race, right? Let's say Dr. Bradley and I were thinking about that, right? And all the advocacy we do, people would say, well, you know, it'd be a good choice. Where would the support be for us, right? Other than somebody, you know, like a Tompkins, right? Who, you know, because he was Cabral's person and he knew the Governor Patrick at the time.
Right, and not even a law enforcement guy. Right. He was a communications guy.
Right. Yep. Right. No law enforcement background.
So this is what I'm saying is that we no longer look at whether or not the person is the most qualified or even qualified, not the most, but even qualified. But because we vote name recognition and we don't do our due diligence, and this is what we end up with, right? And so nothing's going to change. Like I said, I know Helen says, no, I know I thought it's because I know they run it's every 6 years. So he's out, and that seat is tied up, and there are a lot of things happening there. There's been some real serious issues over there. I know there was a murder investigation again, and that is investigated by the DA's office. This is why these races matter, because any homicide or any death investigation in the Suffolk County is investigated by the DA's office. They have the primary responsibility.
And look at the last two sheriffs, quote unquote sheriffs, that didn't have any law enforcement or corrections experience.
Yeah. So what do you think?
And not for nothing too. One thing I could say about the tenure of Steve Thompson, because you know I know Steve, and these are complicated things. Because you know I like him personally, right? But as a sheriff, I also believe his communications background helped him shield and narrate and navigate away from a lot of the, you know, it was like South Bay was this model, and you know, and it, you know, I know guys who were in South Bay, I know guys who were in Nashua, and you know, it ain't the pretty picture that folks was
Well,
painting.
the other thing too is, Tompkins
So
and
you're saying that he was misrepresenting the status
Tompkins
and conditions.
and Wu were both proteges of Elizabeth Warren. They were both worked on her. That's how
There's
I
a
met
tie
both
there.
of them at the time when I was president of MAMLEO. They were both working on Warren's campaign for Senate. They came to me and asked if she could speak at one of our banquets. Is how I first met her. So they're cut from
Let
this.
me ask you a question. How often have you spoken to her since she made sense?
That was the first and last time.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying. But so I see a lot of similarities in their approach to things is very similar to her.
Yeah.
It's
Well, can I say this also?
Sure.
That one thing that doesn't get talked about is that Tompkins was also the chair or / president of the trustee board at Roxbury Community
Right.
College,
Mm-hmm.
which
Right.
he stepped aside from. And so, I mean, that whole body is in total disarray. In fact, the
Fish rots from the head.
And look, this is not to knock somebody's credentials, but the interim president of the trustee board over there now is a recently retired officer. And
Who?
he has
Oh.
no knowledge whatsoever what it takes in terms of running an academic institution. And most of the folks on that body who actually were groomed and then submitted as candidates through the governor by Tompkins.
So
they
it's
have no clue what
so
comes running
full disclosure. Izzy Marrero, who is a Boston police
Yeah.
officer who's on leave,
Okay, that's-
who is head of safety services, appointed in that position by the superintendent, but got the nod from the mayor. So there's a political aspect to his position. Current position is now
not qualified.
right.
Not
Because
qualified
they're
to
mostly
be in that
funded by the state, right? Roxbury Community College, it looks like.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I worked with him, but it's a difference from academia and law enforcement, no question about it. Yeah.
Well, if you look at it, even Cabral didn't have any law enforcement experience. Right? You look at so much of it, just like you said, Larry, like the cronyism between Warren and Menino's cronies, right? A lot of the political positions, or the fact that how do we have so many people that come from the Chicago area and carpet bag their way in, right? Between like Wu, Ayanna Presley, like all these people that where did they come? All places to go, they go from Chicago to Boston. Make their political bones and then what? Move their way through up.
So here we are. In this,
Well, no, there's an easy answer for that, right? Both of them went to college in Boston or Greater Boston.
so
I'm glad you corrected that because that is a pet peeve of mine when people try to call Cambridge Boston.
Right. So where do we go from? Because again, it discourages people. Like for instance, right? We have anytime there's any attempt at accountability. Dr. Bradley, you were on the receiving end when you were trying to put accountability when you were the deputy up in operations. We see that with the Deputy Crispin's, Deputy Eddings, for the Boston Police Department. And now we see the fallout of that is folks sometimes feel like they can run amok. And again, OPAT, right? Folks went there. That was supposed to be accountability, and then it was stripped down and watered down. Because right now, with something as serious as the last two shootings that have taken place involving police officers in Boston, I don't see OPAT out there. And it may not because they don't want to, but I don't see them out there in a prominent role
That's a
in
good
this
point.
investigation.
Yeah, we haven't heard any commentary
because-
from them in terms of like their thoughts. And has the family even? Does anyone know if the family's actually submitted anything to OPAT?
No.
I mean, they've hired Crump, right, as an attorney, and they're filing civil lawsuits. You would think that also would have at least filed something through OPAT, right?
Why would I submit? I'm just saying, if I am the family,
Just to run through, at least go through as many options as you can.
but why would I submit something to OPEC when I probably don't know what OPEC is?
Or right. Or if you've been reading the paper and seeing that they really have had no authority, that Police Commissioner Cox can veto anything they do.
Yes.
Why would I bother?
So why would
blocking.
There's no independence.
Yeah, why would I bother when it doesn't have when it's the toothless lion? Basically, what's happening.
But at the same time, I would argue that okay, then authority like OPAT, then it's like they're being funded, they're there for a reason. It's like they should.
That's where you're wrong. Let me correct you. There's no authority.
So
There's no authority.
Authority.
So it actually goes in reverse. So one, if you're the family, what have you, you just go through the courts who can make the ultimate decision, which is what they're doing. And also too, for folks who may not know, the father is a retired corrections officer, so he's somewhat knowledgeable and has somewhat reasonable stability of funds, I assume, to handle this and navigate this type of situation. But at the end of the day, when these things go, it's the court, but it's up to OPAT to investigate. The family doesn't necessarily shouldn't have to go to OPAT. When we created OPAT, the thing was, if you wake up in your office and this is on the front page of the thing, you should be able to go to work that morning and say, I want to see what's up with this case.
And do you know OPAT is funded? You want to know what their annual budget is for OPAT?
What?
Taxpayer funded? $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Well, this is my hit, Jamal. I think in a large respect, that's worse. Because if OPEC hasn't done anything, that's telling me that they're lying dormant, and they're not. Politically, they're afraid to do something. You're saying that they can take the initiative and move forward without having their families.
There you go.
Okay.
And again, independent audit, and that speaking as like I do fraud investigations for a living, and I was an auditor before I joined the Boston Police Department. So it's like audits can definitely show you, hey, where's this money going? How's it being spent? Is it being spent efficiently and well for the taxpayers? Because even look at that, OPAT, $1.5 million budget. They shouldn't be just sitting on their hands waiting for people to file complaints.
Well, in this particular case, though, Evandro Cavallo made a very definitive statement.
Okay.
That said, he wasn't going. This particular case with the Nicholas O'Malley and the Stevenson King. Mm-hmm. He said he was not going to look into this and not allow, but the DA's process would go through, and and that was sufficient. These other two cases, the case of, like, for instance, the officer with the improper storage of the thing, that could be looked at. The shooting through the doors in Dorchester, that could be looked at. And this other shooting of the kid with the sword in the northeastern thing. And while they've now the name has been released, but we still don't know the race of that kid. We know it's also a young person, but we don't know the race of that kid.
Right. Well, the city just...
Okay, my question, Jamal, would be, are there any set rules and regulations that OPEC has to go through to determine which cases to look at versus which one not to look at?
No, that's where the independence comes in. So the way it was created, it is supposed to, like I said, and this is the analogy that I used in our deliberations, was that if something happens on the 6 o'clock news, that was unbeknownst to you before, you should be able to go into your office the next day and say, I want to know about the Smith-Johnson case.
This is where I push back, Jamal. I don't think it should be the next day. I think they should be on the ground when these things happen.
Well, actually,
I'm not reading about it.
Yeah, according to WGBH and the Globe, it looks like OPAT Director Carvalho said that they believe that the public has a right to see the body camera footage, but they actually suspended their independent review of the shooting, so that under current ordinances, the agency cannot interfere with active criminal investigations led by the district attorney's office. And Director Carvalho also said during a recent city council hearing that he was personally denied access to view the footage by the Boston Police Department and District Attorney Kevin Hayden's office. So even though OPAT did actually it sounds like for them to suspend an independent review, they had to have started an independent review, right? So it looks like they even had an independent review.
Then it begs the question, what are we really paying for? Because these are the type of things that you want. Because if I just read something, and I don't know what the circumstance, the city just paid out $12 million to an individual regarding some incarceration. So, and Jamal, you and I have had conversations. Because when Tito Jackson was in the council, I asked them if they could bring up and tally up how much the city has paid out in lawsuits, and it is in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
So in reference to that, Larry, one second. For Larry, your reference, City of Boston recently agreed to a $12 million settlement with Sean Jenkins, a man who spent nearly 19 years in prison for a 2001 murder he did not commit, according to Mass Live and other sources.
There you go. Right. So we pay for it. The taxpayers taking on the chin. But go ahead, Jamal. Thank you, John.
As you know, I'm working on a whole, database with this right now. And the database includes, basically wrongful incarcerated people, because, wrongful incarceration comes from a wrongful conviction, which comes from a wrongful arrest, right? So there's a bunch of those folks. and a lot of this stuff has happened recently. If you remember the kid Terrence Coleman, for instance,
No, I remind us.
mental distress that happened out there on that little plaza on its way out to like going to Dedham, Forest Hills to Dedham, that little plaza there where the Burger King and all that is, the Domino's Pizza, whatever. But that was that kid. So in any event, they had to pay out, and obviously, I'm sure the mother would much more prefer to have her son back. But they paid $4.7 million for that. Yeah, that was in 2024 that it paid out. The case happened originally in 2016. As you know, the hair test that was $2.6 million.
And then even
as you know,
Sean Ellis, the trial 4 situation, right? Actually took
Sean Ellis, that's 16.
2021 won $16 million settlement. Yep. Frederick Clay, 38 years in prison before being exonerated in 2017.
Right. James Watson, $4 million. Frederick Clay, 3.1. My buddy Sean Drumgold, this is a mystery to me. He initially was awarded $14,000, but he actually, $14 million. But then actually only got $5 million.
Yeah, James Watson, they said after 41 years in prison, ended up only getting $1 million in compensation.
And exactly. So that's also too. There's a scale that go, and some that I thought were higher. The two white people, David Woodman. I thought that was a $13 million settlement. It was actually $3 million.
And to add to that, actually, between like looking this up through like WBUR and some other articles, it looks like totals between 2020 and 2023. Boston Police Department's related legal payouts totaled approximately $31 million.
Yeah, they paid a female superintendent, $2.4 million, another one $1 million, another one $1 million. That's what I'm saying. Is that?
Yeah, I didn't get to that. Yeah, and that.
No wonder they don't want that audit.
Again, so anyone who's attending that community meeting with city councilors, if you see your city councilor, or just call and email your city councilor and be like, hey, reverse your vote. Reverse your vote on that independent audit, because that independent audit needs to be done, and it needs to be done today.
The database that I've been working on, and this is one of the things is categorizing these things. So one is the wrongful convictions, wrongful arrest things. Bang. There's others that are police brutality, or damage to property or vehicle. And then there are the ones that I'm calling internal cases, where it's actually officers who have had these issues of discrimination, or whether it's sexual or gender-based or both, or racial discrimination or what have you. Hostile work environment, all of this type of stuff.
Right.
So there's a lot of categories under what happens with a huge institution like the BPD that ends up, costing us.
Right, and even to that point, Jamal, it was on recently a female that they even had fired, they supposedly rightfully, that they had to still pay her out over $1 million because of the way they did it. So, Dr. Bradley, is this taught in your class? I mean, how do we, from an academic
ethics course, you need to teach ethics course.
How do we get
I use BPD for ethics courses.
To where, because the taxpayers are the one. I mean, if you think about what Jamal just was talking about, what they paid out could have offset this deficit.
Well, I don't know what to say on this one, man.
I'll tell you, lost for words.
My personal opinion is that you need to have a situation where some sweat is taken off the brow of the officer or officers who are engaged in the behavior. And what I mean by that is that you should not transfer the debt over to the city alone in its entirety. A portion of that debt should come from the officer. Other than that, it would be no motivation to have the officer doing the thing correctly. Now,
so you're talking about qualified immunity, sir?
No, I'm talking. I am talking about qualified immunity. I'm not quite sure that I support that in its entirety.
Right.
I'll be very honest with you.
Basis.
Well, no, it's like shared responsibility.
I understand where the court was going with it. I understand that the court can be inundated with frivolous lawsuits, but I also understand that the court should take a careful look at each individual situation to determine if qualified immunity should apply.
Yeah, but there is an exception, though. Officers can be held in terms of civil liability if they've shown to have violated a clearly established statutory constitutional right. So there is an exception.
But in other countries too, to the point about the frivolous lawsuits in other countries, if you bring a law, that's why you don't see these frivolous lawsuits much, because if it's found that you didn't prove your case, you're held accountable.
Well, that's what they're meant to. It's meant to qualified immunity is meant to protect from frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah. So I'm not in support of it. I think that we use it too much as a police officer. Because
but the point that he brings out, how come we, like, if people do bring a frivolous lawsuit, how come you can't go back, or how come the court can't now punish them for that?
Well, it's just like many times people file a false police report and they're never charged with it. It is a crime, but they're not held accountable. So it doesn't, keep people from doing it. They continue to do it because they know.
Oh, no, but then that becomes habitual with that person. But if that person gets held accountable for it, it'll be an example for other people.
Well, there have been cases, like, for example, you had Supreme Court did deny immunity to police officers in the past. Grove versus Ramirez in 2004 denied it to correctional officers who held a prisoner in deplorably unsanitary conditions. Taylor versus Riojas in 2020.
Those are violations of constitutional rights.
Des Moines.
But what we're missing out here is that our police department stems from slave patrol, and our slave patrol. When you're dealing with a group of people.
That's
or a demographic of people that are seen as property.
Yeah.
We really don't care about how you treat them. And that's my first hit. My second hit is that our justice system, the way that is constructed, is for punishment, not for justice.
Yes.
You see, and so it's really for getting a certain group of people back into
court of laws. It's not a court of justice. It literally is. He's absolutely right. The way it's set up, it's like when they wrote the Constitution, and that's why they had the
14th Amendment
and the Electoral College. All those things were set up. We're like, no, we're still in control. We'll tell them that we'll tell them like we've got their freedom, but no, we're still in control.
Well, also, and look at the way they added. That's why they added the 14th Amendment too, right? In terms of equal protection clause and everything else.
But Jamal, we've got about 2 minutes. Yeah, we got about 2 minutes.
So fun fact too. Our current commissioner, Michael Cox, his settlement was $877,000 from the city, and then he had a separate thing where he sued that officer individually to an undisclosed amount.
Yeah, and he just pinned the badge on him, promoting him to lieutenant.
Exactly.
How about that?
Insult to injury? Or poetic justice? I don't know. It's like
just promoted him to lieutenant.
Yeah. That's what you get when
and then you have like all these situations, like even just in the news as of yesterday, you have Sergeant Paul Downey, right, in his case involving the 14-year-old, where now they're talking about. I mean, even that you don't hear any comments or anything in the news or OPAD or whatever else, like situations like that.
Yeah, let it be me.
Now
Dr.
he's claiming blackmail.
There's a certain group of people, members of a certain demographic, where they'll be out in full force talking about something like that.
Right.
But he doesn't fit in that demographics.
There was nothing.
So therefore, it's zero.
Rose,
it's a donut.
Right? Remember Rose? That was
right,
found out.
Rose part two, right?
That he was.
Oh, okay.
Early on.
He's got the right complexion for the protection, as Paul Mooney would say.
Right.
Okay.
Wow. Well, Jamal, thank you, sir. We've coming up against the clock. I was thinking about attending on Tuesday just so we can cover it on Saturday, but I'm not sure if it's worth driving in, spending $100 on gas to drive into Boston.
Or have a Zoom option? You can attend remotely.
Maybe.
Find out.
You just reminded me we got to do the food tomorrow. I got to put gas in the truck.
There you go.
Exactly. I'll carpool with you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Everyone's carpool.
Thank you, Jamal. I appreciate you. Well, folks, all right. As usual, we're running up against the clock. Dr. Bradley, I don't. I yield to you because of your wisdom in your time on Earth. But where do we go here, bro? Help me out.
Well, brother, I tell you something. Life will work itself out. It has no other choice. It will definitely work itself out. But we need to. I don't know how many times that we have sat in this seat, you and I, and talked about the importance of voting. Everything we talked about, especially around the budget, goes right back to the fact of the lack of voter participation.
And educated voting participation.
Exactly. So that is the issue here. And I don't know how we're going to actually convince our people that you need to exercise
get
that.
that
No. The way Larry says it's so funny when you always say that. Besides the fact that if you're giving out something for free, they'll show up or whatever, and that they won't vote. They won't vote for their own interests. But look at the fact that the government, the powers that be, are making it so much harder for you to vote. If it wasn't that important, why would they be
won't
working
be taken away from? We've got to go.
Again, you're perfect.
Be blessed.
Amen.
Stand up for what's right.
I wrote 300 songs in 1 year, Boogie will tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game, it ain't a challenge. If your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'. You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strapped. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle so if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard.